What is up, guys? This is your man Max. Thanks for stopping by the channel. You know, it doesn't always take a lot of money, sometimes very little, to start your real estate investing. And today I'm going to show you how I bought my first $2 million in real estate, starting out at only $12 an hour right now. So I grew up in New York City, in Harlem, and both my parents passed away when I was 10 years old. So I went to go live with my grandmother. And my grandmother, bless her heart, she didn't have a lot of financial background, education. As a matter of fact, she never even owned a checking account in her entire lifetime. So that was the backdrop for my financial foundation. It wasn't a lot. And it wasn't because it wasn't important. It's just because that's not what was in the household. That was just not something that was stressed in the household. So I began to learn about real estate and finance early on when I was in high school. And as a matter of fact, what happened was one of my teachers came up to me when I was in junior high school, and she said, "Hey, Warren, you ought to take this test to go to this Bronx High School of Science." And I didn't know what that was, but I later found out that the Bronx High School of Science was one of the most prestigious high schools, was and is one of the most prestigious high schools in the country. And about 25 to 30,000 students each year apply to go to this high school. And they pick the top 2 to 3% of applicants that go to the high school. So lo and behold, I take the test and boom, she says, "Hey, you got accepted." So now, I didn't know anybody. I had no friends or family that lived outside of Harlem. And this was the first time that I actually interacted with people of other races, other cultures. And there were students there who spoke 4 and 5 different languages. So this was a great experience for me because it got me out of my comfort zone and it got me to experience other people. And so while I was there, I befriended a guy named Franklin, and he became my best friend in high school. And every day, his mom would drop him off at high school in a Mercedes-Benz. Now, at that time, I didn't even have anybody in my immediate family who owned a car, let alone had a Mercedes-Benz. So anyway, this was my best friend in high school. We go, and I'm at his house, and we're talking, and his dad comes in, and I said, "Hey, what do you do?" They had this beautiful house and everything, and I was like, "Hey, what does your dad do?" And he says, "Hey, he's a real estate broker." So his dad would talk to me periodically and tell us things about money, finance, real estate. So I didn't learn a lot or didn't retain a lot of it, but the one thing that I did remember that stuck out with me was this thing called the Rule of 72. And basically he said, if you take an interest rate, you divide it into the number 72, it would tell you how long it would take your money to double. Okay, and I thought that was very interesting, and that kind of stuck with me. And so he had this Mercedes-Benz, he had this nice house, and I just wanted to be in sales, and I wanted to do real estate, and that was something that became part of me and what I wanted to do. So anyway, after high school, I spent a few great years in the U.S. Air Force, and then I got out and started to do these various sales jobs. And I sold insurance, I did publishing, sales, advertising, you name it. So one of my buddies who was in the military, he said, "Hey, Warren, you know what? You ought to apply to go to this financial institution, okay? And it pays $12 an hour." And I was like, "That's not a lot of money." He said, "No, but you'll be good at it. Just start out at $12 an hour. You get better. They'll put you in sales and you can make commission as well." So I go to work for this company, and I'm in the customer service, and then I'm doing well, and they put me in sales. And so I just really take to it. We're doing credit card sales. We're doing business loans, business credit cards, and business lines of credit. And so I'm getting the hang of this. I'm doing very well. So after a while, I'm starting to make really decent commission. I buy my first house. So this is just a house that I live in, owner occupied. I'm doing pretty good at this sales gig. So after a while, they say, "Well, we're going to consolidate. We're going to move the sales center to Florida." And I was in Nevada at the time. I was like, I don't think I'm going to move my family to Florida. I was married at the time. So I decided to stay in Nevada, look for another sales gig. So I pal around and I find another sales gig at another financial institution, and I'm doing extremely well. But I don't have any investment property at the time. So I come across this website, and it's called HomePath. Now, HomePath is a website where it's sponsored by Fannie Mae, and you can type in any zip code in the US, and it'll tell you about the foreclosed properties that are in your city or anywhere in the United States. So normally when you get an investment property, you have to put 20% down. But in this case, HomePath was offering an opportunity for investors to just invest 10% down. So it was half the normal investment upfront money. So I didn't even have 10% down to put on an investment property at that point, but I was still saving my money, still doing well in sales. But I didn't have the money for the down payment at that time. So the company, they moved to Florida, they consolidate, and I go work for another financial institution, and now I'm doing extremely well, okay? And I purchased an upgraded house. I'm just doing well. So I go back to this HomePath website, and I'm able to find my first investment property. Now, this is the first property that it was actually an investment, where it was going to be rented out. I was going to actually generate income and try to get the maximum return of investment on this property. So I buy my first investment property, and I only had to put $9,000 down. But normally it would be $18,000, $20,000. So, and what do I do next? Now, I'm doing pretty good because I've got this investment property that's returning about $300 plus in cash flow. So with a $9,000 upfront investment, that's pretty good. Even when you take into consideration vacancies, maintenance, the whole nine, I'm still getting about 19, 20% rate of return on my money. So now I'm doing well. I'm great at this sales. I'm making six figures. And what do I do next? Do I go out and buy another investment property to build my portfolio? No. I go out and buy a new Mercedes. So big car payment, big insurance payment, big mistake. Because literally 30 days later, the sales manager comes to us and they say they're going to restructure. So now our commission is going to be cut in half. So I'm thinking, I got money saved up. I got an investment property. I'm doing good. I'm not going to work here anymore for less money. So I just take it easy and I kick it for like 2, 3, 4, or 5 months, right? And I'm not doing anything. So after a while, I'm thinking, hey, I got to get some income going here because I'm not doing anything. So I wind up taking a job that was just going to pay me half the commission I was making anyway. So after doing that job for another financial institution, and I'm still selling credit cards, I'm still doing the business credit, which was my forte, which I was really good at. So what happens, the company says they're going to get rid of the actual job. What ended up happening was the perfect storm. So in my first property, there was a foundation leak, and the insurance company said that they weren't going to pay for it. And then in my actual investment property, there was a non-pay renters. And so I wasn't getting any income from either one of these properties, but I still had to make my mortgage payments, and they're eliminating my job. So literally I had 3 mortgage payments that I was responsible for, and I had no income. I had one of the mortgages that was in pre-foreclosure, and 2 I had to modify. So eventually I had to modify all 3 of these properties. So I said, what am I gonna do? So the company said, hey, look, we're gonna eliminate this job, but you can go to Arizona. Hey, this is gonna have to be my opportunities, and not to mention, they were going to repossess my car. So I go from making 6 figures to like sleeping on the floor because I didn't even have a bed in the new place. So I get there to the new job and I start, and now all I'm doing is selling credit cards, business lines of credit, like my forte, but I still have to make these mortgage payments, and I still have a car that's going to be repossessed. So I wind up getting another job. So now I'm working 80 hours a week, and finally, believe it or not, through all this hard work, I'm able to get my head above water. So I'm making my mortgage payments, I'm getting renters into the place, right? What I noticed that now the business owners, the entrepreneurs, they would call in at any time, right? And typically they get money. House flippers would call in order to get cash to flip their homes, and then they would just repeat the process. And they would always typically call in at a specific period of time during the day, like certain hours. They called in at any time, but the bulk of the entrepreneurs, the investors, the house flippers, the doctors who wanted to buy medical equipment for their businesses, they would call during a specific period of day. So whenever that time of day came, I would always forego my lunches and forego my breaks, so I would be available to talk to the entrepreneurs, the business owners, the flippers, right? And so after about a year of doing this, my manager calls me in the office, and on the phone is the operations manager. He says, "Congratulations, Warren, you're one of the top sales reps, and we're going to take you on this all expense paid trip." So we had about 1,100 sales reps in our sales force at that point, and they took the top 1% from each division. So anyway, I'm real happy. I'm still working the 2 jobs, and I'm get my head above water. So I go down to this event. They've got these celebrity speakers. It's this beautiful 5-star hotel. It's on the beach in Key Biscayne, Florida. I mean, it's just amazing, overlooking the water, right? So while I'm there, I get on the elevator, and it's this older couple there. And the lady says to the guy, she says, "This place is a dump." And I'm thinking to myself, really? This place is a dump? I mean, this is a 5-star hotel, is fabulous. So I want to talk to this lady who believes this place is a dump, right? So I strike up a conversation with the lady, and she says, "Yeah, the Four Seasons in Hawaii is way better than this," right? So I'm talking to her, and then I strike up a conversation with her husband. And so it turns out that her husband is a retired ophthalmologist, and he owns 660 investment properties, not 660 doors, not 660 units. He owns 660 individual investment properties in California and Arizona. So I'm like, man, this is impressive. I really want to talk to this guy. And he had a big ophthalmology practice, had multiple locations throughout California, et cetera, right? And so I said, hey, I want to talk to this guy. So I get to talk to him, and he's giving me this advice, and I'm like, just trying to take in everything he's telling me. And he says, "Warren, you got to do 3 things." He says, 1, you got to improve your tenant screening. He says, 2, you have to either become a real estate agent or find a really good real estate agent who deals with investors. And he says, 3, if you're investing, you got to buy your property in South Mountain. And so I took his advice, and over the last 6 to 20 months, I've purchased over $1.1 million in real estate just in South Mountain alone. It's had the highest growth rate over the last year in our area, and is projected to be the #1 growth area for the next year, and hopefully foreseeable. And starting all this out with $12 an hour. So you don't have to start with a lot of money. You can find programs like the Home Path programs and others to get into investment properties, or even if you're going to be an owner occupant. So don't forget to like the video. We'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. And until next time, this is your man Max. Thanks for tuning in.